Hello and welcome to Mumford and Other Observations, our first actual episode. We're super excited to be here. Yeah. I'm T.S. Russell, or Tim Russell.
I'm Bridget Gamboni.
We're here to talk about Mumford and Sons. We're going through each of the albums one song at a time. So this first season will be on Sigh No More, the album. And this first episode of that season will be on Sigh No More, the song. Mm-hmm. So we're excited to jump into this, and I remembered that other thing that I wanted to talk about. It was one of my buddies yesterday when I was talking to him about the podcast. He asked where the title, Mumford and Other Observations, came from.
Yeah.
So I figured that would be a good thing to share with everybody. So Proof Rock and Other Observations is the title of a collection of poetry by T.S. Eliot, actually his first published book of poetry. T.S. Eliot was a major influence for Marcus Mumford and Mumford and Sons. I figured it would be a good idea to name the podcast about Mumford and Sons after T.S. Eliot's poetry. So we won't talk much about Eliot during this first season, talk about him a little bit more during the second season, and then quite a bit during the Wilder Mind and Delta seasons. Yeah, can't wait till we get there. It's going to be so great. But so that's where the title of the podcast comes from. So if anybody asks you why Mumford and Other Observations is titled the way it is, you can tell them it's after T.S. Eliot's first published collection of poetry, and you can sound really smart that way. Without further ado, shall we go ahead and dive into the episode here?
Yes, can't wait.
All right, so what we're going to do first is Bridget is going to read off the lyrics of Mumford and Sons' song so that you all have them fresh in your memory and that we do too. And then after that, I'll give a little layman's terms translation of those lyrics to just sort of make sure we understand the basic action that's going on in the song, and then we'll dive into some of the literary sources. So you want to take us away, Bridget?
All right, here we go. Sigh no more. Serve God, love me, and mend. This is not the end. Live unbruised, we are friends. I'm sorry. Sigh no more, no more. 1 foot in sea and 1 on shore. My heart was never pure. You know me. But man is a giddy thing. Oh, man is a giddy thing. Love, it will not betray you, dismay or enslave you. It will set you free. Be more like the man you were made to be. There is a design, an alignment, a cry of my heart to see the beauty of love as it was made to be.
Yeah. Great lyrics, great song. You might have noticed that it left out some of the repetitions that they use in the song itself. I guess that's just the way that they wanted to do it. These are the lyrics from the booklet that came with the Sigh No More CD. So they're official lyrics. So if you're like, why didn't they have all the repetitions? Tim and Bridget got it wrong. Well, Mumford and Sons got it wrong. So take that. So yeah, if you want to pass me the thing, I'll sort of interpret the lyrics for everybody. This is what I call the No Fear Mumford translation of the song lyrics. So just to make sure we understand the main action that's going on a surface level in this song. So it's more or less, it's a man addressing a woman that he's hurt somehow. We don't know exactly what the nature of that injury is, but probably by just, not being a good enough man for her, something along those lines. And the song itself starts off as an apology. He attempts to explain why it is that he went wrong. And then finally, he wants to show what it is that he's striving for ultimately. In the literal sense, it goes more or less like this. Keep God in the perspective, have love for me, and let your heart heal from its wounds. Things are tough now, but this isn't over. Don't let this damage you. Remember our friendship, which is the basis of our love. I am so very sorry for hurting you. Don't be sad anymore. I admit that I haven't been fully committed to you. You know this is true because you know who I am and what I've been through. Man changes frequently and quickly, but he is made for joy and happiness. It's been promised to me that love will set me free, and allow me to be who I'm supposed to be. My heart yearns for this and cries out to see the beauty of love as it was made to be. So it's not nearly as pretty as the way Mumford and Sons puts it, but hopefully that gives you a bit of a sense of what's going on. The next thing we want to do then is, before we dive into a line-by-line analysis of the song, what we want to do is introduce our special guest for the episode, William Shakespeare, who wrote the play Much Ado About Nothing. And it turns out about half the lines in Marcus Mumford's song are direct quotations from Much Ado About Nothing. As we're going through the song line by line, we'll be drawing a lot from Shakespeare's play. So before we do that, we want to give you a summary of what happens in Much Ado About Nothing so that you have a little bit of context. So Bridget, if you want to read that off for us.
Certainly. Much Ado About Nothing, like many of Shakespeare's comedies, is full of delightful characters, witty conversation, and many twists and turns. The protagonists, Benedick and Beatrice, profess to despise each other at the beginning of the play, but through the conniving efforts of their friends, eventually confess their love for each other. This main action of the play is interrupted when the play's villain tricks Benedick's friend, Claudio, who has fallen in love with Beatrice's cousin, Hero, into thinking that Hero has been unfaithful to Claudio. After much pain, false accusations, and betrayal, everything is resolved happily. The villain is punished, and the two pairs of lovers, Benedict and Beatrice, and Claudio and Hero, are married.
A little bit of like a rom-com sort of storyline there. You got two people who hit each other at the beginning, or at least claim to. By the end of the play, they're passionately in love. I tried to keep it relatively simple in that summary there, but it's really, there's a lot of characters in the play. And I left off a lot of them from the summary, but it's super fun. Lots of twists and turns, great witty Shakespearean comedic dialogue. I was actually in a production of the play in college.
Really?
Yeah, which is one of the reasons that if I seem relatively familiar with the play, that's one of the reasons why.
That's why, yep.
Yeah. I didn't play any of the characters mentioned there. I was Don Pedro, Prince of Aragon.
Oh.
It was super fun. One of my favorite roles that I've ever played on stage. But yeah, so that's Much Ado About Nothing in a nutshell. And so now we'll just go through Mumford and Sons song line by line, analyze the references that they make to Shakespeare's play, and just work on interpreting the song itself and what it means, what questions it raises about human nature, and what if it poses any answers to those questions. So the first line of the song is "Serve God, love me, and mend." Mend. It took me a while to figure out what they meant by mend here, but when I looked at it in the context of the play, because this line here is a direct quotation from the main character, Benedick, to Beatrice, the woman he loves. And so this is towards the end of the play, once they've already admitted their love for each other to each other. He tells her to serve God, love me, and mend. And what he means by mend here is not become a better person, but basically feel better, let your heart heal. Beatrice is really upset at the moment in the play because her cousin has been publicly shamed by the man who had promised to marry her because that man thought she'd been unfaithful to him. It's a big mess. So Benedick is trying to console her. It's not necessarily something that Benedick has done wrong to her, like it is in the Mumford and Sons song. But he's trying to comfort her. In the context of the song itself, this line really harkens towards the one of the last stanzas of the album, or of the song, where Mumford says that love will not betray you, dismay or enslave you, it will set you free, right? And so this whole theme of healing your heart is introduced right from the very beginning of this song, and that's going to be important. So serve God, love me, and mend is the first line. This is not the end is line 2. That's fairly straightforward. I don't really have anything more to say about that line. Do you have any thoughts so far?
Just thinking about the simplicity of it, but still the depth that is there. Serve God, love me, and then just those three, commands. It's so simple, yet there's, I think, so much weight to that. So just kind of unpacking those three things, I don't know. I know that's probably not unpacked much more in the song necessarily, like what is meant by doing those things, but just those lines are, I think, just really poignant, and I don't know, just brings me back to when I first heard the song. I don't know, really powerful.
Yeah, I think you're really onto something there, because I think those three commands are going to be really central themes for the album, and arguably for Mumford and Sons' whole musical career thus far. They do talk about God a lot more than a lot of other musicians do in their songs. Having these three commands introduced at the very beginning, I think that is pretty significant. And I think we are going to see more. We are going to see those things unpacked more as we go, which will be interesting to see. So yeah, I think we're going to be doing a lot of hearkening back to this particular song as we move through the album, because it really does sort of set the stage for everything else that's to come in the album, and it's almost like a prologue or a prelude to the album itself. Okay, then line number 3 is "Live unbruised, we are friends." So these are two separate lines from the play's final scene that have been joined together in Mumford and Sons' song. So the speaker is again Benedict, and this time he's addressing Claudio, his friend who had shamed Beatrice's cousin, thinking that she was guilty of something she didn't commit. By the time Benedict is saying this line, though, the truth has all come out, and both sets of lovers are united. Benedict tells Claudio that he forgives him the harm he has done, and the two of them are friends once again. That's what's going on in the Shakespeare play. In the Mumford song, it's a continuation of "This is not the end," right? Live unbruised, don't let yourself be permanently damaged by this. We're friends. Remember our friendship. Remember that that's what we are basing our love on in the first place, and we can move forward through this and heal. Our hearts can heal. Line 4 is "I'm sorry." Again, I don't feel like I really need to go much further into that line. It's fairly self-explanatory. And then, so lines 5 and 6, so the second verse here is where it gets a little more interesting. So the lines 5 to 6 is "Sigh no more, no more, one foot in sea and one on shore." So what's interesting about these lines is they're actually lines from a song in Shakespeare's play. So they're taking lines from another song in Much Ado About Nothing and putting those lines directly into their own song, which I think is just a really cool thing to do. And it's super fun. So I wanted to read the first verse of that song in the Shakespeare play. It goes like this: "Sigh no more, ladies, sigh no more. Men were deceivers ever. One foot in sea and one on shore. To one thing constant never. Then sigh not so, but let them go, and be you blithe and bonny, converting all your songs of woe into hey, nonny, nonny." So it's basically a song saying, hey, ladies, stop worrying about how lousy men are. They've always been lousy since the beginning of time. So just, sing hey, nonny, nonny. Just be happy, eat, drink, and be merry. So it's, it's a lighthearted song. It's not supposed to be like super profound or anything like that. It's just more or less supposed to be a silly song. It does contain in itself some of the themes of Much Ado About Nothing of the play, because the play is all about people being constant to each other, right? Whether they people deceiving each other, right? Like Benedict and Beatrice's friends deceive them into thinking that they're both in love with each other, and by the end of the play they are. So, that's a successful deception, but then also the play's villain deceives Claudio into thinking that Hero is unfaithful to him. So that's a bad deception. So you got a lot of themes of deception and faithfulness and constancy in the play itself. And so the song kind of hints at that. And then the fact that the speaker in Mumford and Sons song uses these lines is interesting, I think. It shows that he's almost giving an explanation for why he failed the woman that he loves. And saying, look, men have always been bad at being faithful. So I don't know that he's necessarily trying to excuse himself, but he's trying to put the situation into sort of a larger context, right? That this isn't just a problem with him, it's also a problem with just mankind in general.
You mean men and women?
Men and women, yeah. Yeah, I think in some sense maybe specifically men, but also, obviously both men and women are fallen and we're all imperfect.
Yes.
But so I think that what he's doing is he's sort of moving it from the very particular pain that they're experiencing now to a larger picture, which is going to become important later on in the song. Okay, line 7 is, my heart was never pure. And so again, that really, it's harkening back to that idea of original sin and fallen man, and that none of us are fully pure. We all have failings. We all do things to hurt other people. And so again, he's trying to provide context, a more universal context for what's happening with them, so that they can understand it better. And then the next line is, you know me. That line has so many, probably so many different meanings. But because he's saying that, you know me, you know what I've been through, you know what I'm like, you can see where these failings of mine are coming from. But then also in the context of the Shakespeare play, Benedict and Beatrice are having one of their little spats towards the beginning of the play in the first scene, and Benedict, sort of like brings the argument to a close and walks off, and Beatrice says, "You always end with a jade's trick. I know you of old." So that line, "I know you of old," indicates that they've had some kind of romantic connection with each other in the past. This isn't their first time meeting each other. They've been involved with each other in some way before. And obviously there's still some unresolved issues going on there, right? She still resents some of the things that he did and some aspects of his personality and that sort of thing. So I just think that's interesting, the way that ties in with the song itself. Where he says, you know me. Right, we've been through a lot together, and you know what I'm like, you know what I've been through.
The line, you know me, made me think of that song, the Shakespeare song that was inserted.
Sigh No More?
Yes. I'm wondering if there's any connection there with just humankind, again, you know me, you know what humans are capable of. So when I first heard that, I thought maybe it was also related back to that. And just interesting that song, as you said, is kind of like a more chipper song, giddy, happy song.
Hey, nani, nani.
Hey, nani, nani. But it's in this, he inserted it, Mumford and Sons, the writers, they inserted it in a more, I'd say, I don't know, a more subdued song. It's just that interesting. It's
subdued, introspective, very thoughtful kind of song.
Yeah.
And the situation that's happening in the song is very, very intense.
Right. I just thought that was an interesting contrast.
Helps you see that original song in a different light.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah. Kind of making light of something difficult, or maybe making something that seems more jolly, a little bit heavier. Yeah,
just providing perspective, kind of introducing the paradox of life into the situation to show that, heavy situations also have their aspects of levity to them, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Introducing Shakespeare's song into Mumford's song gives it sort of hints at something happier.
Yes, there's a great it's such a hope. This song is such a hopeful song too. I mean, yeah, even though it's kind of the context is a little bit more sad, serious. There's, I don't know. I feel very optimistic after hearing it.
That's mostly because of the second half of the song, which we're about to get into.
Yeah.
But actually, before we move on from the "You Know Me" line, just one other thought I had just now is, do you know the song "You Know Me" by the Air Traffic Controllers?
I don't think so.
Oh, you'd really like it.
You should sing it.
I'm not gonna sing it. I don't think I should sing on this podcast. I don't think that's a great idea. But it starts off saying, "You know me, you know everything about me now. My heart is in your hands, and you know you could break it." It's a really great song about what happens when two people have been together for a long time and know each other really well. Man, every time I listen to that song, I just get more and more excited about that song because it does such a great job of looking at romantic relationships and saying, and looking at how on a practical level two people can spend their whole lives together and improve each other and just and make each other better and love each other and be happy together. And it's a great song. I'll link to it in the show notes to this episode. Everybody should go listen to it. You and I will listen to it as soon as this episode is over.
Cool.
This line made me think of that song, and I don't know if it was written before or after this Mumford song, if it has anything to do with it, except thematically. I feel like it's related somehow. So I don't know that either of the songwriters were thinking of the other one when they wrote their songs, but there's connections there nonetheless. Moving on to lines 9 and 10 of Sigh No More by Mumford and Sons. He says, "But man is a giddy thing, oh man is a giddy thing." So these lines, which are the last calm before the rising crescendo of the final two stanzas of the song, so they take us back to one of the final lines of Much Ado About Nothing. So here, once all the friends and lovers are reconciled to each other, Benedict, the main character, utters a short speech to account for his transformation from sworn bachelor into devoted husband. Because when the play begins, not only does he profess to hate Beatrice, he professes to never want to get married, never settle down. He's so happy as a bachelor, which, every bachelor says that, but they're all lying inside because they know they really want to get married.
Longing for love.
Right? So Benedict says that he professes to care nothing for any jest cracked against him. Quote, "For man is a giddy thing, and this is my conclusion." End quote. So in other words, Benedict attests that man was made for joy, a dizzying and alarming joy, right? Which is why he uses the word giddy. So the giddy joy of love is what he's getting at here. And on the other hand, though, the word giddy can also indicate somebody who's easily changeable, right? Or unconstant, which is Benedict uses that meaning of the word to explain his shift in attitude from disdaining marriage to willingly embracing it. But it also harkens back to the song that was sung earlier in the play, the Sigh No More song, which attested that men are, quote, to one thing constant never, end quote. Yeah. So there's still that sense of, look, people change. We're not always the same people that we were. Sometimes that's for the best, sometimes it's not. And almost seems like a throwaway line when Benedict says it, but I think there's a whole lot to unpack there with this notion of giddiness. What are your thoughts about giddiness, Bridget?
Yeah, when I heard that, when I hear it in the song, man is a giddy thing, I just think it's like fickle, man is,
That's the word I was trying to think of the whole time I was preparing for this episode. Fickle.
Yeah.
It's a great word.
Fickle. Man is a fickle thing.
Mm-hmm. Unreliable.
Unreliable, yes.
Call me irresponsible.
Yes. Unexpected. Will surprise you. Will surprise. You surprise others. You surprise yourself too, just with what you're capable of. Yeah. So the dual meanings there: giddy, like chipper, joyful, or inconsistent, unreliable, unexpected, fickle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I guess I've always seen it more as the latter, the fickle side of it.
Right, which is what I was thinking for most of the time until I started reading it in light of Much Ado About Nothing. When I looked back and looked at the context of Benedict's line, where he says that man is a giddy thing, and this is my conclusion. I think he really seems to be he's not talking about something dismal there. He's talking about a change for the good and a change towards the good. Giddiness is also used to indicate the type of joy and happiness that man is made for. So I think, we have these dual meanings of the word, and I think the one meaning of the word references more what man was made for. The other references more what man actually does.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So creation, original happiness versus the fall.
Yeah. Kind of, just disorder, kind of, like chaos within oneself, lack of structure, how that is lived out in being inconsistent, changing. I mean, of course, we as humans would change, but I think, I guess I'm just contrasting it with God, who is unchanging, versus humans who do change. God, who is constant, man, who is inconstant and not consistent.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting contrast, and I think even though God doesn't change, he does partake in the first meaning of the word giddy, right? Mm-hmm. Of that joy, that overwhelming excitement and happiness. He's the source of that joy and that happiness. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, God is like giddiness perfected. Yeah. Almost.
Yeah.
Not to get too off topic here, but it's something that comes up a lot in Shakespeare's comedies. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily the word giddy, but that idea of giddiness and of like this wild, uncontainable joy, particularly when it comes to love. I think there's a lot of that in a lot of Shakespeare, and that comes into play. There are even divine incarnations of that giddiness that come into some of the plays. Like you have the god of marriage shows up in As You Like It at the end to perform the wedding ceremony, and it's kind of Shakespeare is sometimes like a strange crossover between paganism and Christianity, but more, he's very much a Christian, but then he'll have these pagan gods show up in his plays once in a while, which is just kind of a fun, interesting thing. He has an imagination that isn't really, that's very forgiving and inclusive, if you know what I mean. He's open to the idea of having these, like, they're not so much gods in the way that the Christian God is a god, but they're gods in the sense of being divine representations of these fundamental ideas or ideals, like happiness and joy and marital bliss and that sort of thing. Giddiness is a very multifaceted word and a multifaceted experience, right? Because when you feel giddy, you're just like on top of the world, but also that can make you do really weird and unexpected things, and sometimes they're not always good things, so you have to keep it all in perspective, right? Serve God, love me, and mend, and be giddy, be giddy while serving God and loving others.
Yeah. Maybe again, not to get too off topic, but it makes me think that expression, being a fool for Christ. I'm trying to think.
We'll get into that next episode.
Okay.
With St. Francis of Assisi.
Yeah. Okay.
For sure. But what were your thoughts about it now?
Just kind of the same idea. How giddiness can kind of make you do crazy things. And sometimes, though, what is crazy in the eyes of the world is not actually crazy, too. So it might seem crazy, but it's actually the way we're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And then there are some things that do seem a little crazy. But anytime somebody is in love, they do crazy things. So, especially in the beginning, just forgetful, all sorts of crazy things when you're in love. And that's, on a human level, I say, in the beginning, you can do crazy things, but with God, I think if you can sustain that, it doesn't fade away. Sometimes, sure, maybe, but the love, the act of doing crazy things doesn't necessarily have to end, even if the feelings aren't there. So,
yeah. No, we'll definitely talk more about that sort of thing with St. Francis when we talk about the cave in next episode. Francis is the ultimate giddy man, right? He's just so on fire, and just does all these super crazy things, and is that ultimate fool for Christ. Yeah. No, I can't wait to talk about that and read passages from Chesterton's biography of St. Francis where he talks about that. That's because so you got a little sneak peek for next episode. Watch out. G.K. Chesterton and St. Francis will make a cameo appearance in that, along with several other people. There's a lot of sources to go over in next episode. But as far as the Sigh No More song goes, to get back to that finally, we now get into the last two stanzas of the song, which, we've talked a lot so far about what man was made for, right? And that bliss that we were designed for, and that's what really starts to come out in these last two stanzas, which the speaker was laying the foundation for that with the line about how man is a giddy thing. And so just to reiterate what those last stanzas are, it's lines 11 to 16. Love, it will not betray you, dismay or enslave you, it will set you free. Be more like the man you were made to be. There is a design, an alignment, a cry of my heart to see the beauty of love as it was made to be. So he's talking about two things that were made to be, right? So you've got how man was made to be in the first stanza there, but then also in the second stanza, how love was made to be. So those are two things that have been corrupted by the fall, right? Man is not what he was originally created to be. He's lost the preternatural gifts and the supernatural graces through original sin, which the supernatural graces are restored to us through baptism, but not those preternatural gifts of long life and unending health and just all those sorts of things that theologians talk about that always confuse me.
Corruption, disorder.
But then also love itself has been corrupted by the fall because it's been distorted. Because man has been distorted, our relationship to love is distorted. So when we love imperfectly. Yes.
Love itself is still love.
Right.
But the way that we love has been distorted.
Yeah, our relationship with love, the way that we manifest love to each other, the way that we experience our love for God. It's all been, it's a struggle now. It's definitely harder than it was before the fall, and certainly not love as it's supposed to be. It's not the love that Christ shows us on the cross, right?
Yep.
It's we're broken,
Mm-hmm.
right? Man is a giddy thing, a fickle thing, to one, no, constant to one thing, never. You might have guessed where this is going, but all this reminds me so much of John Paul II's theology of the body,
Mm-hmm.
because he talks so much in those talks about what man was created for and the love that man was created for, and the way that, even the way that we're created as man and woman is meant to show forth the perfect love that God has for us.
Mm-hmm.
But how, because of, so in the beginning it was like that, but then because of the fall, that's all been distorted,
Mm-hmm.
and we're not expressing that image of God,
Mm-hmm.
the Imago Dei, the way that we're supposed to.
Yeah, that sacrificial love.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at the heart of it, love is sacrifice.
Yeah.
Yeah, just being a total gift of self.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've really lost that. Sometimes people, will reduce love to just a mere feeling or an action, but I think it's more than that. It's more than a feeling, more than an action. It's a total giving of yourself,
Yeah.
which is all encompassing of the mind and the soul and the spirit, the body, just like not all at once, but sometimes maybe, like Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
Jesus gave all, and we are also called to do the same thing. In a sense, we have to be willing to die for those whom we love.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a song later on in this album called "I Gave You All," right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we'll revisit this idea when we get to that song.
Yeah.
In John Paul II's theology of the body, he puts forward 4 criteria for love to be truly itself, right? It has to be free.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be given freely without coercion. It has to be total.
Mm-hmm.
You have to give everything that you have to the other person. It has to be faithful, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the idea of constancy that we've been talking about. That you have to be faithfully devoted to your beloved. And then finally, it has to be fruitful. It has to bear fruit, whether that's through children or whether it's more spiritual fruit, or just the blessings of love itself.
Mm-hmm.
So those are all of the things that we struggle with in this fallen world.
Mm-hmm. Conjugal love.
I think those are some of the same themes that Mumford is getting at with talking about how being the man that you were made to be, seeing the beauty of love as it was made to be. The other title for the theology of the body is "Man and Woman, He Created Them."
Mm-hmm.
So it's really talking about the creation of man and what that was for, right? What was man made for? So Marcus Mumford, I don't know if he's ever read Theology of the Body, or if he just he's very much in tune with that man was made with a purpose in mind.
Mm-hmm.
It was made for something. And spoiler alert, it's love. But I think Marcus realizes that it's something a lot more than just sort of surface level love, or or sex or something like that. It's really it's a very, very profound love that involves serving God, loving the other, and mending your heart.
And it's not random either. It has an intention. There's an intent.
Mm-hmm.
So, and who gave it that? Who gave love an intention? God. So so it's there's some very supernatural element to love.
Right. Yeah. If man was made for something, then somebody must have been that maker.
Right.
Yeah, and we will meet the maker during another song in this album towards the end of it, right?
Yeah.
And that's going to be I'm so excited to talk about Awake My Soul. It's one of the best songs on the album. It's so good. But, we also get some of these themes will be talked about a lot more during the very last song, After the Storm, right? Where he talks about how there will come a time, you'll see, where love will not break your heart, but it'll dismiss your fears.
Yeah. Oh.
And so really, spoiler alert again, it's going to end on a note of hope, very much so. But we're going to go through a lot of pain and difficulty before we get there. There's going to be a lot of ups and downs throughout the course of this album. There's some really intense highs, some really intense lows. It starts off at a bit of a low note with the opening of the song, with that apology. But that song itself builds towards hope. And so I think even in the darkest points on this song, when we're out in the storm on the heath with King Lear, and like things just seem at their absolute worst, I think there's still notes of hope to be had. And so don't despair if we're in a really dark point in the course of the album, because it will get better.
It gets better.
Now that we're done with going through it line by line, it's time to talk about what we've learned today. And so just want to recap more or less what we went through, which was we looked at Shakespeare's Much Ado About Nothing, which if you haven't seen it or read it, would highly encourage you to do so. Joss Whedon directed a great film production of it that I'd highly recommend. It's not good for all ages, but it's quite entertaining, quite good. Really captures the highs and the lows of that play itself. But then also just in terms of the themes that we have been drawing out in this song, I think the most important theme is that man was made for something, right? That man was made for love, and that love is part of the process for healing man from his brokenness and bringing him to completion and fulfillment, bringing him to what he was meant for. Because there's a design, an alignment, a cry of my heart to see the beauty of love as it was made to be. And so there's a couple different questions that arise from that we'll want to keep in mind as we go through the rest of this album, which is that, if man was made for love, why does most love end badly? Why is there so much failure and fallenness? And I think we kind of touched on that already. It's because of the fall, but that theme is going to come back again and again. Really, what I think a lot of these songs are crying out. The question that these songs are crying out to have answered is it possible to experience love that is pure and uncorrupted? Is it possible to reach that point? And I don't know if Mumford is going to give a definitive answer to that question. I think that's one of the most important questions in human life. And so I think it's a question worth talking about, worth examining more. Wow. Do you have any final thoughts then before we close out?
It was cool to just see. I've seen Much Ado About Nothing when I was in college.
Did you see it live or one of the...
live. Live. I saw it at...
It wasn't my college production, was it?
No, it was at Northern Illinois University.
Right.
My sister was a part of the crew and was a set manager, crew manager, or something like that. So yeah, I saw it and I remember not really understanding it. And just so now hearing, going through this and seeing, word for word lines that were taken out of that play and put into this song, it's really neat to see that and to go through it all, and just how much depth is in the song itself and in the play too. It's really, really fascinating, really, really cool.
Yeah, it's a great play. It's a great song.
Mm-hmm.
Mumford and Sons is a great band.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, you like Mumford and Sons, I think,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I do.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah, they were pretty all right.
They're all right. Mumford is just all right with me. Yeah. So, all right. Well,
so next time
the cave.
The cave. Whoop, whoop.
Yeah, that'll be a wild ride.
Yeah.
For sure. It's song's has like at least twice as many lyrics as this first one, so it'll be a lot to unpack. There's like 3 or 4 different sources that we'll be talking about, and it'll be should be super fun.
Mm-hmm.
Our email address is mumfordpodcast@gmail.com. So feel free to reach out to us anytime with questions or ideas. We're always happy to talk some Mumford with you. You can also follow us on Instagram at Mumford Podcast, and we'd be happy to take questions and have discussions with you through that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And please, tell your friends about the podcast and spread it around. We'd love to have as many people as possible going on this journey with us.
Mm-hmm.
And also, Mumford and Other Observations is a production of Flight House. So if you're not sure what Flight House is, we'll have a link in the show notes. It's a collaboration between ourselves and several other Catholic creators that we have a crowdfunding page where you can support our work as we do podcasts and write books and release YouTube videos and all sorts of things like that. We're putting out a lot of great content, and we have so much down the line that we want to be working on, and you can be part of making that possible by helping to support us. So check us out. There'll be a link in the show notes to that. And yeah, anything else before we close out?
Sigh no more.
Sigh no more. Yep.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers.
Swing.